it stands to reason that you always, no matter what your platform is, whether you're a model or an actor or a singer or whoever, you rely on the attention that people pay to you. That attention is currency, right? Energy. They're paying you attention, they're paying you energy. Current is a word that we use when we're describing electrical currents, right? So that's what currency is. It's energy in motion, okay? So when people are paying you that amount of attention and you're all like, me, it's all about me, just look at me, that eventually will collapse in on itself. You have to be doing things for other people, because that's how energy flows, okay? You can't just have like a blockage, it needs to move. So what is up, soul fam? It's Sundal from Substance Over Style, and welcome to a new video. So I am using, I hope the lighting is okay for you all. I am using my ring light today because it's getting a little bit dark and I cannot use natural light because we're going to lose it soon. But I wanted to jump on and do a video because I was having a conversation with Wes JD on Instagram about the topics of he actually asked me to do a video talking about modeling and spirituality, because I know, and I've had several conversations with people about this who seem to think that the two cannot coexist or that they're antithetical. I have never seen them as antithetical. I think certain aspects of them can definitely be antithetical, but that's like everything, like anything, you know. Sexuality can be antithetical to spirituality, but they're also very much overlapping and in line. The antithetical aspect of it is a reversal or an inversion on the truth. Everything is spiritual. Everything in the whole universe is spiritual, because that's what spiritual means, right? So he wanted me to talk about, you know, modeling and spirituality and how to be spiritual whilst being a model. It's kind of, I don't know, sometimes things are just so obvious to me that I find it difficult to talk about things unless people ask me questions, because then I realize the gap between my level of thinking and like the average person's level of thinking or other people's level of thinking, and then I'm able to close the gap by talking about it. So, and then we also had a conversation talking about so not just modeling and spirituality and how those two intersect, but also because I've been sharing a lot of things on, you know, what's going on with this lockdown as it pertains to kind of natural laws, universal laws and sovereignty. He's asked me to kind of talk about that, but with respect to modeling, and that's definitely something that I could talk about, because I see a lot of intersection. For me, the modeling industry and the fashion industry were a perfect training ground into universal laws, natural laws, and individual sovereignty. So we're going to get into it. Let's get into it. I really hope that this lighting is okay. I don't know, I might have to do some little playing around with it on DaVinci Resolve. So yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to set up the space. I'm trying to smudge with this. I'm actually not sure what this is. It's just a little cross section of a certain type of wood. I've been using it for smudging because, if you don't already know, Palo Santo is quite endangered. I have some agar wood as well, but agar wood is extremely sacred, so I only use those for like rituals, if I'm doing like a ritual. If I'm just using it for regular smudging, like every day, I will use this, or I'll use rosemary, because those are quite abundant resources. Oh, look at that. Ooh. Smells really good. I need to find out what wood this is. Okay. So, modelling and spirituality, I don't see why those two can't coexist. The word to me, model, what is a model? A model is like an example of a thing. So, I studied architecture, right? So, when I was studying architecture, we would make models, whether they were physical models or they were virtual models that we would make on like Vectorworks or, you know, whatever type of architectural drafting software you know, people use nowadays. Back then I was using Vectorworks or AutoCAD. So we would design a building, and there was this is the scheme. It hasn't been fully realized yet. Obviously, you need to show what it looks like first. You have to represent it in some way. So we would do that through drawings and models. So a model is a representation of a thing, or an example of a thing. Another interpretation on the word model is like a role model. You know, it's like modeling the higher aspects of a thing. That's why models generally have to be in peak physical condition, because we are representing the potentials of a human being. And, you know, before we had social media and a lot of, you know, very accessible video content, and there was only like the still image, it kind of only consisted of how we look. And that was the only thing that we were modeling. We were just modeling our physical 2D representation, and that was the most important thing. Now that social media is becoming more and more important, and it's becoming more and more important that models have a social media, we're being called to model more than just how we look. And the thing is, this isn't even really that new, because even models back in the day have always done activism. I mean, look at what's her face? Who's that one? The name's just gone. Really famous from the supermodel era. The name's gone. Christy Turlington. Christy Turlington? The one who's into yoga, right? She does so much philanthropy. She always has done. Naomi Campbell, she's done so much. She's done so much to, you know, talk about the representation of and the diversity of women in the industry, particularly as it pertains to models of colour, because that's a really important issue. So, you know, it's like the conversation that I was having with Soma Miller that I'm going to post on my channel. By the time you watch this video, it will be the previous one. Next to the wound is your gift. So, you know, that's obviously a problem that Naomi Campbell has had issues with, you know, racism in the industry, being one of the only black supermodels at the time that she became powerful, successful. So that was what she concentrated on, making change and kind of breaking down those barriers for other models who are also of colour to follow in her footsteps. So models have always been involved in activism and you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, Emily Ratajkowski, she does a lot of work for women's rights and things like that. You know, I know that she can be a little bit controversial because of the Blurred Lines video, but she never even would have been famous if it hadn't been for that. So she was operating within a system that was already kind of misogynistic. So let's not knock her for that. So yeah, like I realise that activism and spirituality aren't necessarily the same thing, but they do intersect. And you know, I'm very much into sacred activism. I think that I see activism as a spiritual practice. I think if you're not involved in some kind of activism, you're not really spiritual, because the whole point of, yeah, you can do like, you know, yoga every single day, but what is yoga? Like, yoga means union, okay? So it's not just about having an asana practice. People think that that's all it's about. It's not. It's about unifying heaven and earth, body, mind and spirit, masculine, feminine, 3D, 5D, 10D, 12D, you know, it's about unifying. So it's about collective, being a force for change. That's what yoga is. So it's not just something that you do on the mat, it's something you do off the mat as well. So yeah, models have always been involved with that. You know, being a role model is nothing new, and using your platform for positive change is nothing new. Now, I understand where people are coming from when they say, oh, but it's like, you know, it's pretty superficial, so that it's kind of antithetical. And also the fact that, you know, you're promoting companies, you're promoting commercialism and capitalism. Now, I mean, I've gone through many different levels of awakening, and there was a time when I really had an issue with that, and had an issue with promoting businesses and promoting capitalism and promoting people buying things, because also I did a lot of research into, you know, our financial system, our infinite growth system, which is basically, it's the underlying causal factor of that is the fiat currency and usury system that we are operating under. So I had an issue with, you know, the way that we were destroying the planet in order to just make useless things. You can be against that, but you can still be somebody who believes that, and we're seeing this now with the way that people are being forced to shut their businesses. And on one hand, you're having people say, well, you know, it's not worth, you know, risking people's lives just for money or for the sake of the economy, and don't just worry about money, we should care about people's lives. It's just like, well, unless you're going to be feeding those people, you're kind of contradicting yourself, because if people don't in the system that we're operating in, if people don't have money, they're not going to have money to feed themselves. So I don't have a problem with people doing business, with people exchanging energy. Like, there's such a thing as sacred energy exchange, and I don't just mean, you know, sex. That is a form of sacred energy exchange, but just providing goods and services to people is a sacred energy exchange. I have no problem with buying things from people who are doing business in, you know, a good way, and who are not, you know, incorporating unethical practices. Now, when I went through that particular awakening, and those of you who followed me since back then, when I was, and you know, I did actually, like, I was blocking a lot of my own success, because at that time I was really fucking smashing it and doing really well, and I was uncomfortable with it because I was going through this awakening at the same time, kind of like a dark night of the soul. And I will do a video talking about the dark night of the soul and what it is and how you can cope with it if that's something that you're going through in your life at the moment. 1 second, I'm going to move this camera because I don't like this lighting setup. Okay, that's better. So what was I saying? I can't fucking remember what I was saying. Yeah, so you know, I'm going to talk about Dark Night of the Soul another time. I was going through a Dark Night of the Soul. I've been through many, so I'm kind of used to it. It's not a big deal. Tea. Gotta have my tea. So yes, what was I saying? Can't fucking remember. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with supporting people's businesses, and this is what we're seeing now with this whole bullshit that's happening. I'm not gonna say the words because it kind of alerts the algorithm, and then people start fucking checking my videos. Luckily I don't have a large enough subscriber count to get shadow banned, but some of my friends who do similar content have been having their videos I mean, I might be getting shadow banned because my stats aren't as good as they used to be. So, you know, if you like my videos, click the like button, because it helps with the algorithm and helps this video get seen by more people. So, you know, companies like Amazon, who are obviously like really huge, have done really well out of this. Jeff Bezos has done really super well. But smaller businesses or medium-sized businesses are really struggling right now. So, and why? Because when you have your own business, you're much harder to control, you know, you're much more sovereign. So, you know, that's kind of a problem that we're seeing right now. But yeah, it stands to reason that you always, no matter what your platform is, whether you're a model or an actor or a singer or whoever, you rely on the attention that people pay to you. That attention is currency, right? Energy. They're paying you attention, they're paying you energy, current is a word that we use when we're describing electrical currents, right? So that's what currency is. It's energy in motion, okay? So when people are paying you that amount of attention and you're all like, me, it's all about me, just look at me, that eventually will collapse in on itself. You have to be doing things for other people, because that's how energy flows, okay? You can't just have like a blockage, it needs to move. So if you're not doing things for the collective, people will stop paying attention to you. Now, at the same time, if you're a person who's like very negative, then people will actually not pay attention to you, because a lot of people do not want to look at certain things that are going to make them feel bad emotions. People like to feel good emotions, so that's why they pay attention to people who make them feel good. So models, actors, you know, artists, celebrities, musicians, all of these people, you know, who are involved in these artistic endeavors generally give people a sense of fantasy, you know, and escapism, and that's what people like. So if you're the kind of people who's talking about negative things, as I often tend to do, a lot of people don't want to look at that because it makes them feel a certain type of way, it makes them feel bad. So that's where it can become a problem, because on one hand you can't just be siphoning energy, taking, not even necessarily siphoning energy, but if people are paying you attention, it's because they're getting some kind of value from you existing. So when it comes to that, if you're, say for example, if you're a model or a musician or whatever, and you're quite a spiritual person, you have to be able to make people feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's not about spiritually bypassing or avoiding the truth. You can talk about darker topics, you can talk about, you know, more negative things, but in a way that provides solutions. So, you know, when I was going through my dark night of the soul, I was in a very negative vibration, and I was very frustrated with how little people wanted to pay attention to the darker aspects of what's happening in this matrix. And of course they're not going to want to, because people don't like looking at the dark and feeling helpless. That's normal. Like, why would you? If you can't help, why would you do that? Because it's actually siphoning your energy. And I want you to be very mindful of this, because we've got a lot of people coming online now, and we've got a lot of people going through awakenings, and I know that some of you are having real issues with all the negative stuff that's being spewed right now. If somebody is fear-mongering and they're just talking about all the bad things that are going on in the world, and they're not offering solutions about what you can do about it, feel free. You have my permission, you have God's permission to just cut that shit off. You don't have to look at it, because it's not helping you. It's not helping anyone, you being in a low vibration. If anything, it just feeds the archons. So, you know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know I talk about archons, who are basically interdimensional parasites that exist in the reversal, 4th and 5th dimension, that feed on human emotion. They feed on loosh. So that's why you see all these fear-based agendas in the news and stuff. And I actually don't know why people pay so much attention to the news, considering how negative it is. I think it's, if you have an entity attachment, your entity attachment is addicted to that. So that's why sometimes, and I've noticed that it happens to me as well, because sometimes I'll get lower thought form attachments, and I'm aware of them and I know how to clear them as well. But like, if I get into like an argument or a debate with somebody online, it will generally start off quite respectful, but I sometimes find myself just logging on to the, whatever it is, if it's on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, just logging on just to see what that person's saying, because it's almost like you become addicted to the confrontation. So that will be usually because you have some kind of entity attachment, or some kind of lower vibrational thought form that wants to feed off the energy that the negative energy, maybe the anger or the antagonistic feelings, you know, that your body is producing when you're getting triggered. So just be mindful of that. Like, you know, if you're, you know, it will serve you up to a point, but there'll be a point where you realize it is just draining your energy. So this is why I said in the last video, be very careful about getting into keyboard wars with NPCs, because their purpose is to, and it's not just it's not even necessarily the person that you're getting into the keyboard war with. It will actually sometimes be the entity that you're actually getting into the argument with, because the entity is feeding on your emotions and is addicted to it. And if you're hosting an entity as well, then your entity will also be addicted to whatever emotions are arising out of the both of you. And it might not even be an NPC. It might even be somebody who is, you know, a starseed, or somebody who has a certain mission template that you're getting into the argument with, because both of you aren't fully healed and integrated. And so you're allowing your entities to kind of run the show and, you know, harvest loosh off other people. Okay, so what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, so being spiritual and being a model. Yeah, you have to be a role model nowadays. Now that, you know, we have social media, as a model, you know, if you're a model or you're somebody who wants to get into modeling, the role of the model has completely changed now, and I think it's not going to go back to how it was before. Now it's about being a brand. One of my friends who's also a model, she just posted on Instagram, she was just like, now that influencers are models, what are model, and you know, everybody's a model now, and everybody's doing campaigns and everybody's doing advertising for all these different brands, and you don't even need to be a model to model anymore. What are models going to do? And it's just like, we're going to do what we came here to do. Like, we're not just models. We're not just models in the, like, a mannequin sense of the word, okay? We model to people. We show ways. We're way showers. That's what I believe anyway. And people find it weird when they're like, oh my God, I never thought that models would be spiritual. You got no fucking idea, okay? Because I meet models all the time. You know, I'm constantly doing like runway shows where I meet other models, or shoots or whatever, but runway shows is the one where you tend to meet the most people, and you would not believe how awake and aware some of these people are, and you would have no idea if you looked at their social media. Like, you would look at their social media and you would think that they're just about image. They're not. How do you think they manage to magnetize so much attention towards them? How they manifest, you know, whatever platform they have? It's by knowing how to bend the universal laws and how to manifest things. Most of them aren't going to tell you. Like, I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to break this stuff down for you, because that's part of my mission template, to de-occult these things for the common person or the average person. But actually, none of us are average. We're all here with certain gifts and certain, you know, things that we're here to do. Part of what I'm here to do is to demystify that for people. Not everybody's here for that reason, so some people will keep that stuff to themselves and they won't share what goes on with them. That doesn't mean that they're not spiritual. It doesn't mean that at all. Trust me, I've spoken to some of these people, and some of them are very, very spiritual and know exactly, they might not know exactly what's going on, but they kind of have like a visceral understanding and they're in tune. So yeah, don't just judge the book by its cover. If you see somebody on Instagram and you just think, oh, they're just about fashion or they're just about beauty, you don't know what's going on, like, behind, you know, their eyes, or, you know, what's going on in their head, or what they believe in. So yes, and then he's asked me to talk about, forgive me, you definitely touched on the natural law stuff here, right? Being a superficial culture. Yeah, he said something interesting. He goes, it would be good to see if there's a place for spirituality and letting go of these worldly things when you work in that industry. Letting go of worldly things, I think, also is a false program. I got into that for a bit, and that's a level of awakening that you'll get to on the path. I mean, the path is not linear, by the way, and everybody comes to different understandings at different times, and may not even come to certain understandings in their particular lifetime, because everybody's here to learn different lessons. So, and we're all source experiencing ourselves, so we're all ultimately going to learn those lessons, but you report back to source what your lesson is for this lifetime, and eventually we'll all come to the greatest understanding of everything. I mean, we do at the deepest level, because, you know, that's a space that's beyond time, and you can tap into it even now. So, you know, everything is now. But yeah, I'm going too esoteric now. But yeah, letting go of these worldly things just doesn't resonate with me anymore. I got to a point where I was like, oh, spirit, and you know, this isn't even real, this is just our perception, this 3D reality, and you know, all this materialism, it's not, you know, this is not real, and this is not godly, and this is not divine. The divine is out there. There is no separation between the material and the spiritual. It's all spiritual. It's all just different bands of frequency. So you don't need to let go of worldly things. You can if you want to, and that can be part of your ascension journey, where you let go of worldly things and you think, I'm fine without any of these trappings of, you know, I don't need the car, I don't need the house, I don't need the makeup, I don't need the designer clothes, and that's great, and I went through that as well. But then through embodiment and, you know, coming into union with like the goddess, which is, you know, the feminine, the divine feminine, this manifested reality, again, it's not just feminine, it's both, because the architecture of this 3D reality is the masculine, and the spirit that runs through it is the feminine. But we're here to experience it, you know. We're here to experience all these, you know, all these beautiful things, all these, you know, art and, you know, culture and music, and you know, all of these things are divine. There's nothing that's not. Like, not saying that there's nothing that's not. Like, there is definitely evil, and evil is a real thing, and evil is the absence of the divine. So I'm not saying that. I think the problem that people have with worldly things is when they see that we are out of balance. So, you know, things that are made by slave labor, and I definitely went through that, where I was just like, oh my God, all this shit that we keep on buying, and definitely, you know, thinking that this band of frequency is all there is a trap of the matrix, and when you start connecting to the divine, you kind of let a lot of that go. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with being in this 3D reality, because right now with the ascension process, we're bridging heaven and earth. So as we move into 5D, it's still going to be a physical reality. Like, it's still going to have like substance. We're going to be, you know, it's going to be tangible, but it's not going to be without all of those dualistic programs of slavery and, you know, all of that stuff. Or we're moving out of it. We're kind of breaking down those systems. So, okay, now he talked about... Sorry, I'm just trying to cover everything that we talked about. Yeah, how it's changing. Yeah, it's social. I talked about that. Social media is changing it. So, you know, yeah, be a brand, basically. You've got to concentrate on be a brand, and, you know, bringing forth the message that you came here to bring based on your unique skills and talents and things that you came here to experience, to learn about, and to teach about. Yeah, sorry, I was talking for too long. So modelling was the best training ground for me to really learn about natural law and sovereignty. I mean, I was studying it. I didn't just learn about it from, you know, doing modelling. I was studying it, but I was putting it into practice as I was modelling. Because when you understand, you know, the way that we contract with other beings, that contract is not just an earthly thing. It's an exchange. It's an agreement that you have. And I talked about this in my ayahuasca vlogs, so you can give that a watch. But you're always making contracts with people, whether those are written contracts or whether they are unspoken agreements. There is kind of like an etheric cord almost that connects you to that person, where you have this, you know, unspoken agreement. And it can be, you know, something that you have with an employer. It can be something that you have with, you know, a partner. It can be something that you have with your parents, for example. And sometimes these contracts need to be torn up, because they're kind of based around a lot of unspoken things and limiting beliefs and old templates that need to die, that are not based in truth. So what I experienced when I started modelling, which was like 15 years ago, was we had this collective understanding that, you know, if a person hires you, like let's say, for example, a client, most models when I started in the industry were very young, like some of them were children even, and so they were not really very empowered, and they were, because they were children, they were looking to these adults in the industry to tell them what to do. So that obviously leaves a lot of a room open for exploitation. and a lot of them are, you know, traveling and doing the whole international circuit. So they're pretty much being trafficked around the world to do these jobs, and there's a lot of, you know, financial exploitation, a lot of sexual exploitation. So I saw a lot of things, and you know, what it really taught me is the way that people disempower themselves by believing that they don't have any power, and believing that they don't have autonomy over their own life and their own body, you know, and that they're obliged to do what others tell them. And this is what we're seeing right now with this current situation, that people think that it's okay and it's legitimate to seek permission from the government to tell them what they're allowed to do, which is just completely ridiculous, and it goes against, you know, all universal laws. You know, universal laws, you are sovereign, everyone is sovereign. Okay, and everybody is free to do as they will within the boundary conditions of other people's free will. And this is where it gets exploited, okay? So with this whole situation, they're just like, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do that, because you might pass the boogie man, the lurgy, let's call it the lurgy, to other people, and that causes harm. Okay, that's reasonable. But at the same time, not doing certain things is going to also cause harm, because if people are not allowed to work, then they cannot make money to feed themselves. So, you know, then you have to look at what causes the least harm, and are you really responsible for what happens? Like, you know, then you could argue that nobody's allowed to drive cars because people get hit. Now, obviously, you're not allowed to hit someone, but it does happen, you know, accidents do happen. So we take that risk factor into consideration, and we just live our lives, and we understand that life is risky and death is a part of life. So anyway, as it pertains to modeling, there was kind of this understanding when I started in the industry 15 years ago that if a client hires you to do a job, once you're on set and you've agreed to do the job, you then have to do everything that the client tells you to do. And that, you know, I saw a lot of fucked up shit. I experienced a lot of fucked up shit as well. Like, as a vegan, I'm not willing to wear fur, but was sometimes made to feel very uncomfortable if I didn't want to do it. Or things like, you know, I was once doing a job it was in Bali, not in Bali, it was in Lombok, and I was coerced into posing with 2 dead fish, which I didn't want to do. I said, I'm not doing that, I'm vegan, I don't stand for that, I don't want my image being used in that way. And I was bullied into doing it. They said, look, it would be such a beautiful picture, you know, the fish were killed anyway because we're going to eat them for dinner this evening. And I was just like, I don't care, I don't want to promote that. I don't want my body and my face being used to promote killing fish. I'm a vegan, I don't stand for that, it goes against my ethics and my morals. They were just like, come on, it's going to be a beautiful picture. I was like, that's the problem. And I did argue my case, but they were just like, look, we'll do 2 pictures. We'll do one with and one without, and then whichever one is best we'll use. And it's just like, and then I ended up doing it. I should have stood my ground. Now I'm a lot more forceful. Like, I was on another job, which was like last year or 2 years ago or something, for Harrods, and there was like a bunch of fur coats on the rail, and I was just like, there's loads of designer clothes, beautiful shoot actually. And so I just texted my agent and I said, look, there's a bunch of fur coats on the rail. Like, you know that I don't wear fur, like, you know I'm vegan. So, you know, do you want to like talk to the client and, you know, just remind them that I don't wear fur? And he goes, oh God, I you know, is there, I don't know, they should have cleared that with me. They didn't say anything. Do you mind just, you know, going with the flow for this time, and we'll make sure that we double check with clients in future. And I was just like, yes, I do mind going with the flow. I'm not going to wear fur. I have a boundary about that. And do you want to tell the client, or should I? And so, yeah, I didn't even have to say anything to the client. I assume they must have said something. So, yeah, I wasn't made to wear it. So I held my position, but this was post Me Too, because Me Too actually brought up a lot of questions in the whole world, but specifically we had a lot of these conversations within our industry in modeling and in the acting industry about consent and about these issues, because they don't just happen in isolation. You know, you don't just show up on a shoot and then the client says, okay, this is your outfit, and it's maybe like a completely see-through outfit and the model is not comfortable with any levels of nudity, or whatever the case may be. It might be that, you know, you're on set and then they give you like a bacon sandwich and you're Muslim or Jewish, and you know you're forced to eat that or go hungry. Issues like that happen all the time, and you know, it's about how willing are you to stand up for yourself and your sovereignty, knowing that this client is going to think that you're a pain in the ass, because they do. I mean, now since Me Too, the industry has changed, so it's become such a much nicer place to work, and I'm really glad that I was able to kind of see both extremes. But before, it was very like, I once got shouted at by a designer because I didn't want to wear fur, and I said, sorry, I can't wear that, and I don't do fur. And he started shouting in French. I mean, he was a shit client. He ended up not paying everybody for this show, and it wasn't booked through an agency either. It was like an independent thing, and everybody was getting paid very small amount, and then didn't end up getting paid in the end. But he was like shouting at his assistant, going, and I can understand a little bit of French, so going, she wants to be a model. I mean, it's not wants to be, I already am, already was. She wants to be a model. How can she be a model saying that she will wear this or she won't wear this? And it's just like, I'm sorry, but that is a normal thing, that when you sign with an agency, they say, are you willing to smoke? Are you willing to do nudity, lingerie, swimwear? Are you comfortable with that? Are you willing to wear fur? And you will take the leather is not one that they ask because it's so normalized, so whatever. And it's going to be kind of a problem if you're not going to be willing to wear leather, then you are going to have an issue in the industry. Maybe not so much now, because now, you know, we have influencer marketing, and influencer marketing is much more concentrated on a niche, which is why I'm now transitioning into influencer marketing, because I'm able to choose the types of brands that I want to work with much more by pushing myself to a certain niche audience. So I'm trying to just do, not even trying to do, I've already started doing just ethical fashion, ethical brands, vegan brands. I'm still doing, you know, shoots that my agency gets me, but to be honest, most of them are ethical now. Most of them are sustainable, because that's what time it is, and so many brands are now becoming more and more ethical and sustainable because they've realized what time it is. So yeah, it's about just having individual sovereignty, and you know, just because you show up on set and the client says you have to do this, doesn't mean you have to agree to it. And it kind of, it encompasses so many different things. So like, for example, there was a famous designer, I'm not going to mention who the designer was or what country they were from, that booked a model that I know who's very well known here, and the shoot was somewhere in Europe. And so she gave them her price, and you know, and then they flew her to the country where they're shooting, and then they gave the call sheet the day before, and they said, this is the call sheet, this is the call time, This is quite common, you know. A lot of the time they'll fly you somewhere, and then only once you get there you realize what they're expecting you to do, and even like what hours. So some, you know, I did a job where I was flown somewhere and arrived at like midnight, and then at 1 a.m. they called me on the hotel phone and they said, your call time tomorrow is 5 a.m. and I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like 5 a.m. And basically this continued for like 10 days, and it turned out that the shoot was going to be, it wasn't 8-hour days. Like, my agency is in Europe and we have 8-hour days. The country that this client was from, they do 12-hour days. So my agent had quoted the fee based on an 8-hour day, and now we're doing a 15-hour day. And I said, or a 12-hour day. And I said to my agent, like, this is why a lot of the time I prefer working freelance, because I feel like I can deal with clients better than some of my agencies can, because I understand universal laws and, you know, how you contract with people. And they go, oh, well, you're there now, so you're just going to have to do it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to have to do it. So anyway, she gets this as well. She's a well-known model here in the UK. And they sent the call sheet and they're like, yeah, you're waking up at like 5 a.m. and it's going to be like a 16-hour day. And she was just like, no, sorry, no, I'm not doing a 16-hour day. We do an 8-hour day in London, in Europe. That's what I quoted you based on, so that's what I'm doing. And they were just like, oh, okay, sorry, we didn't realize, like, we're going to need a 15-hour day, so how much for a 15-hour day? And she goes, no money that you're going to pay me is going to make me do a 15-hour day. I'm not doing a 15-hour day. I would not have taken this job if I knew that you were expecting a 15-hour day. We're in Europe. You will respect us. You will treat us as if we are in Europe, and that's what's happening. And like the rest of the team actually said to her, thank you so much for standing up to them, because we saw that and we didn't know what the fuck to say, but we were not happy about it. And because obviously the model is the one that generally will be working the hardest. She'll be doing the most physical aspect of the job. So she just stood up for herself. And it was good as well, because she didn't give a fuck who this designer was. She had never heard of them. She didn't know that they're famous. She didn't give a shit. And she is quite well known and quite successful here, so she can. And for me, it also took for me to, it was actually after I got my Vogue cover, watched the video about where I talk about how I manifested that, because I consciously manifested that cover. After I got that cover, I felt much more able to stand up for myself. Before I got that cover, I always felt like I had something to prove, and I was always people pleasing. Once I got that cover, I'd proved myself, but then I came into, like, obviously with all the spiritual changes that were happening and awakenings, I realized, you know, I'm sovereign. Like, I'm a multi-dimensional being that's God-sourced, and nobody has the right to rule over me. So I'm able to make contracts with people based on that. And if somebody, you know, I'm perfectly willing to, like, walk off set if somebody is trying to coerce me into doing something that I don't want to do or that I haven't agreed to. And a lot of people are scared to do this because of whatever reason. And I understand that a lot of people are, you know, don't feel like they have the, what's the word? The autonomy and the sovereignty and the personal power to do that, because many people are running survival programs and poverty programs where they feel like if I do that, then this client is not going to book me again, or I'm not going to get paid. I've never not been paid. In fact, sometimes they get paid more because they want me to do the thing that they're asking me to do. So I say, well, what's it worth to you? So sometimes I've had my pay doubled because of that. And I'm not a bitch about it. Like, I have been, but only when I felt like they were being really, really disrespectful. Like, they weren't giving me food knowing that I'm vegan. Or they're, you know, one time I did a job where they were forcing us to work on Christmas Day, and they were not, and we were all in it. This was a whole big group of models, and we're all shooting in another country. And some of the models didn't want to work on Christmas Day. They wanted to fly home and be with their families, and they were just forcing them to work. They were just like, well, you know, we have your flights, you have to do it. And so I spoke to my agent, and I was just like, this is fucked up. Like, they are keeping us here against our will. That we're literally, like, enslaved. Like, that's what it is. And this is what's happening now with this situation, this bullshit situation. People are realizing that they are not free. They're realizing the level of slavery that the humanity is currently living under. And to become free, there is no shortcut to this. You have to connect to God, and you have to be fearless. I just said to my agent, I'm not doing it. And she was just like, but you're there and they're not going to let you fly home. And I was just like, I don't care. I'm not going to turn up on set. Like, and she goes, oh, but that's stupid, you know, you're there, you might as well. And I was just like, I don't care. Like, they cannot, they can maybe force me to stay in this country, or like, well, they can't really. I could even just get a fucking taxi and drive myself to the airport and take a flight home, but then I might not get paid for the 6 days that I'd already been there, and it was a good money job. I just said, I'm not going to show up on set. And she's just like, that's stupid, you're already there, you might as well. And I was just like, well, no, because if they want me to work on Christmas Day and not be with my family, and they're forcing us to do that, they need to compensate us for that. And I had to do the negotiation myself. I had the client knock on my door. I was literally wrapped in a towel. It was so unprofessional. And I opened the door, and I had to do the negotiation. I said, what's it worth to you? And they were just like, we really need you. Like, we know that, you know, you want to be with your family, but we cannot finish this shoot unless we need all of you guys for continuity. And I just said, well, what's it worth for you? And they said, what do you want? I said, you have to double my rate. And I was fair to them. I made them double my rate on Christmas Day, and then the rest of the days I'm already here, I let them pay me my normal rate. I probably could have negotiated higher, but I didn't want to be like a drama queen. I wanted to be fair, but what they were doing was not okay. It was really not okay. But that client will still book me again, guaranteed, because I was not out of my jurisdiction. You know, I was being very fair. Like, you're going to keep me here against my will, and you're not going to allow me to see my family, like you own me. Okay, then just at least pay me, compensate me for the fact that I'm not going to be spending Christmas with my don't I'm not saying that you have to do it every day, but at least for that day, fine, okay, they understand, like, you know, this is business. Don't try and be people's friends. Don't be too friendly with people when you're doing business, because, you know, people will they can just take advantage of you sometimes. You've got to have boundaries. And this is where some of the New Age teachings become really problematic, because they're all like, oh, it's all one, and we're all one, and we're all so connected. And it's just like, yeah, but understand where you end and the other person begins, because all of these New Age teachings are being used now to further enslave people by going, you know, we're all one and we should look after each other, and you're being programmed to believe that your freedom and your livelihood and your ability to put food on the table for your family is selfish, because it could, you know, spread the virus and hurt other people, a virus that has a 98% survival rate. It's just bullshit. But yeah, okay, so I think that's all I want to talk about today. If you guys have other suggestions for other videos, please come at me, because I don't know what I know until people ask me questions. So yeah, I'm here to serve you, I'm here to help you, so yeah, come at me. If you want to book a session with me, as always, I'm taking sessions. They're priced very affordably. I want to be accessible to all of you at this time, people who are going through a lot of issues right now with all the changes that are happening on the planet. And that's it. That's all for today. As always, if you want to activate your sovereignty and you want to balance your masculine and feminine energies and come into divine union as a self-realized being, join my Kriya membership. It's $22.22 a month, so unbeatable. So yeah, that's it. If you like this video, subscribe, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and I will see you in the next one. So fun. Peace out. One love.
You're introduced to LSD, and unless you've taken some other drug, like for instance like marijuana or something, well, you know, it's an altogether new thing, and you actually can have a religious experience